Hello. Okay, so for this uh, podcast, I wanted to talk about artistic accuracy because I was actually watching a documentary on Lady Jane Grey, which there needs to be more, by the way. So I was watching this documentary, and at one point, there was this. I don't know who he was, but they were asking about this painting, this famous painting that was showing her execution. And I guess he was a historian. I don't know, but the this guy went off. I mean, the producer or whoever asked, and he's like freaking out concerning this painting. Now I've seen this painting, um, like in world history class, as far back as high school and middle school. And it's the painting where her eyes are covered and she's led to the execution block. And I mean, he's like going off about how it's absolutely absurd and it's not accurate and it shouldn't even be recognized, and all that. I mean, the producers were trying to shut him up. It was uncomfortable even for me to watch. And like, oh my gosh, dude. And he was an older fella. I mean, it was completely unprofessional. And like, it's one thing to be passionate about what it is, like a particular moment in history and everything, but because I am. I think we know that about me by now. But good heavens, you're doing a documentary. You're on camera, dude. I and that's why I'm doing this podcast, because when it comes to art, I've heard it a million times. I see it on social media. It doesn't matter which one, where people say art is subjective. And the artist, I think we've heard artistic license. Look, I went to art school. There's a thing called artistic license. And again, that's why we're doing this podcast. Because we're gonna talk about that. I mean, but I do want to emphasize a couple of things before we go into the whole history aspect of it. Like, because I see this all the time, again, on social media. When you are an artist, you gotta take criticism. Because I've seen thousands of times where someone says, well, I don't really like it. That's criticism. You have to take it. They're not, it's not directed to you personally. It's just directed to you, to your art. And no, they're not saying they hate you. They don't know you. And I feel like that's what you do. You think that someone, a stranger online, has said that they don't like you. They don't know you. They see your art, and it's, again, art is subjective. I'm a fan of Andy Warhol, but even then, there are some things that he did that I I don't know. But I have seen where people who love what this particular artist will do, whichever artist, pick one, and they hound this person. They harass this person. It's like now all of a sudden that person's existence needs to be snuffed out. And it's like, stop it. Absolutely stop it. Just because you saw a random person's art on the internet and one person said, I don't really like that art style, you're having a meltdown. Here's some advice. Take that harsh criticism and use it constructively. I have had people say that they don't like my art. Okay, how can I improve it? That's the way to look at it. Don't just think that your art is the best thing. Yeah, the hottest piece of shit on the planet, because it's not. Okay, it really is not. There's artwork out there that has been around since the 1600s that is a hell of a lot better than what you're doing. Just putting that out there. And I know this about, I mean, the stuff that I do, I know that it does not surpass Michelangelo's work. Oh, hell no. But I enjoy doing what I do. And yeah, there's going to be people out there that doesn't like it. And I'm willing to take that criticism. And as an artist, you should too. And when somebody tells you I don't like it, don't take it as hatred. Anyway, because yeah, I had to put that out there because I've seen it way too much. And for as much as people screech art is subjective, well, when you're an artist, you should be able to take the criticism. Don't say it and then you can't take it. Don't hide behind the phrase. That annoys me to high heaven. Anyway, so let's get back to this. So when it comes to that painting, Lady Jane Grey, that this guy was having an absolute shit fit over, that painting was painted by Paul Delaroche, and it was painted 300 years after Lady Jane Grey was executed. Okay, Paul Delaroche wasn't there. And I would think this guy who is on this documentary, if he's like this historian or history expert, whatever, he would know that. Oh my gosh. He's like trash talking this piece of art over this event that the actual artist, Paul Delaroche, he was not. Paul Delaroche is well known for painting events in history. And yeah, I'll continue with Paul Delaroche. His pieces are magnificent. And this guy is flippin', man. It reminded me of there's an episode of Frasier, which is one of my favorite TV shows. It doesn't need to be remade. I really don't care. John Mahoney's gone. And he made the show. But there's an episode where a business decided to make a caricature of Frasier. And so they go to this, and it was like a restaurant, I think. So it was this restaurant, and Frasier brings his brother and dad, and they unveil the caricature, and Frasier just can't handle it. I mean, he has this meltdown over how it looks. He says, I don't look like that. And his dad is like, that's what a caricature is. He said it's not making fun of you. It's just it and so then he asked for it to be redrawn. The artist redraws it. They do another little unveiling and everything. And then it turns out that he ends up insulting the artist, who was the mother of, yeah, a little bit of a spoiler on this one, but it's like 25, 30 years later. But it was the mother of the owner of this shop. So, but again, that's an artistic license thing. It's not a portrait, it's a caricature. But that's what that guy was doing. He was having a complete meltdown over this painting that Paul Delaroche painted in 1833, which was 300 years after Lady Jane Grey was executed. He wasn't there. This guy should have known that. Unless Paul Delaroche has a time machine going H.G. Wells on us, because Back to the Future didn't exist yet. Of course, I don't think H.G. Wells did either. Anyway, trying to use the right reference and I'm failing miserably. But the point is, this guy should have known that. he's pulling a Fraser here. I can't stand when people pull this shit. He was on a documentary. He should have had all his facts and he didn't. I mean, he's like, because seriously, he said that this painting should not be recognized. I'm sorry, dude, but it's recognized. It's used in history books, or was. I don't know about history books now, but it's constantly used as reference when we talk about Lady Jane Grey and what happened to her. Paul Delaroche was inspired by a poem that was written by someone who was there at the execution. Now, during that time, during the Tudor era, there were a lot of poets and writers, and their writings are a form of documentation. Of course, there's also chroniclers, but the poets and authors also help. Poets also have artistic license. Me, I used to be a poet. I don't do a lot of poetry write poetry as much as I used to. But I haven't written poetry in probably 10 years now. But so, and that happens all the time. I mean, like Danse Macabre, the music composition. I don't remember who wrote the song, but he was inspired by a French poem, I think. I played it in orchestra. My orchestra teacher was always finding really difficult pieces for us to play. But I remember Danse Macabre was inspired by a French poem. And it seems like that one is connected by the Black Death. Seems like I read somewhere that was. But anyway, 300 years. 1833, Paul Delaroche painted this painting. And yeah, it's not 100% accurate, but he was going off of a poem. The chroniclers have a more accurate idea of what, but it's not like Paul Delaroche had access to those documents. So this guy really needed to chill out. They're not, I don't know where the documents would have been kept back in the 1800s, but I'm just sure that if Paul Delaroche would have asked for those documents, they would have been like, no, no, you're just a common painter. Like, we're going to let you see that. No way. Uh, oh, good grief. Yeah, I couldn't believe his meltdown with that, but that, and that's what I mean, is Paul Delaroche, his painting isn't accurate. He was going off of a poem. But it's as accurate, it's more accurate than a lot of other paintings that are showing historic events and people in history. You look at another tutor would be Henry VIII, that famous painting showing his family. And you of course see Lady Jane, Lady Jane. There's two Janes here, so just bear with me on this. My dyslexia is going to have a fit here. There's Jane Seymour. Now, Jane Seymour had died in childbirth, but you see her in this painting. And I don't remember how old Edward is in the painting, but again, his mom is dead. Seems like he was about 7 years old when the painting was. And of course, you see Henry VIII is standing there all regal and everything, and like, yep, here I am, and here is my family. As only Henry VIII can do. And the other thing about that painting is Mary and Elizabeth are there. They were still considered bastards. And sorry to use that word, but that's what the documentation said. And that's how he saw them. Jane Seymour was trying so hard to have him, from what I'm remembering, she was such an influence on him that she was softening his heart and was able to help him. I mean, first of all, she gave him the son that he wanted, so that helped a lot. And so she was trying to convince him to remove the whole seeing his two daughters as bastards. And but unfortunately she died before he said okay to that. And of course, it just ruined, it was like her gone, everything she said just crumbled. So because, and the reason I know that those two were still not legitimate children, when Mary took the throne after what happened to Lady Jane Grey, there's proof that she, in her handwriting, she changed it over. And yeah, one of the reasons she so famously became Bloody Mary is because she executed the gentleman that made her, that declared or signed the papers that decided all of that. She never forgave him. It was a revenge thing, executing him, and then it just spiraled after that. And I have sympathy for her, I really do. And but because yeah, she was physically assaulted by Anne Boleyn, and Anne Boleyn told others to assault her too. Because, but it doesn't excuse her actions later on in life. Anyway, I feel like I'm going off track a lot, but I promise we're talking about art here. Now with Queen Elizabeth, the the one thing, Queen Elizabeth is my favorite monarch, to be honest. But when it comes to her paintings showing her, there's a lot of symbolism with that. I mean, like, you could say that with a lot of the other paintings of monarchs before her, there was symbolism, but not to the extent of Queen Elizabeth, especially the one where she has her hand on the globe and you see the ships behind her. And I mean, you think about like her and Sir Francis Drake, and just all the accomplishments that she did. Yeah, these paintings were to show everything that she did. It wasn't just to show off her outfits and everything. No. And the other thing is is how often she was painted as a very young woman. You think of how long she ruled and you see her as a young woman. It's like, no, can't stay young forever, dear. Oh, goodness. Yeah, that fountain of youth, No. Oh, good heavens. Of course, if we're going to talk about uh someone using art to show off their fashion, let's talk about the Sun King, King Louis of France. He's another one that I like. He's the party boy. And because seems like hey, he was very flamboyant. I mean, with all those outfits and the wigs and all of it. But when it comes to accuracy, this is there are quite a few pictures of him on horses, and there's like cherubs with trumpets. I don't think that happened. It's like the heavens opened up and all these angels are coming to no, I don't think that happened. But he wants us to believe that that happened. There was an oh shoot, I'm blanking on the name of the king. He was the 14-year-old king who was the one that dealt with the peasants revolt in the 1300s. And but there are paintings of him and illustrations that he had commissioned, where it's him with the Virgin Mary and Jesus. Yeah, sure, that happened. And what's funny about that is, we talk a lot about the ancient Egyptians and how Pharaoh was supposed to be considered a god. And not far off, is it? When you see in England where uh, they're painting themselves next to the Virgin Mary and Jesus, and then you see in ancient times where they're painting themselves with, yeah, didn't happen, but but we're led to believe that this happened. Sure it did. You walked with Jesus. Oh, good heavens. It's funny how art is subjective. They wanted us to believe this. They wanted people to believe that this happened. That they were the whole idea was that they were chosen by God. And so they were dancing around the fields with Jesus. That's not what happened. I always like to look at the medieval, like the illumination pages in the books and stuff. Even just the doodles. You have people who are fighting off killer rabbits. What was going on in the Middle East? I saw one not too long ago, and it was this cat with a crossbow, and then you had like this little tower filled with mice, and they had swords and bow and arrows and everything. Yeah, that happened. It's like the medieval version of Tom and Jerry. I mean, I love that there's like a Twitter or something where it has like the medieval memes and everything. And you have like one where this uh it's one of the more famous, and it has like this woman turned herself into like a donut or something, and this guy is playing a fiddle or something, and it's like, yeah, woman turned herself into a guitar. Because honestly, you think about it, they were so religious, full of religion and everything, that if somebody were to go into contortionist mode, they would have thought that that was satanic. I mean, oh, I don't know. And then you have all these angry animals. Like they have all these pictures of just angry elephants. They're just mad. Very upset. What's going on? And the people pooping. Oh, I don't know. And that is accurate. I'm pretty sure that is accurate. I mean, that people haven't changed. Oh, good heavens. They had Taco Bell back then. I shouldn't say that, but I did. And there's just so many things that are true and not accurate. I mean, the one that I question is that penis tree, where it shows the woman and she's in front of a tree that has man parts in it. I already said the word. I don't know why and she says, "What is that?" I would expect that in Pompeii, right? Because they've got that everywhere, which I would believe in Pompeii because it's a fertility thing, right? But But in Europe, what's going on? There's also those pictures of the people that don't have heads, but in their torso there's a face. That's why you don't drink the water. We hear all the time, the water was bad. That was the warning. Oh, I love those medieval illustrations, all of it, because it makes you question what was going on in the Middle Ages. And the little doodles and everything. I mean, it's like the teenager scribes were so bored out of their skull, and so they were just like us in school. It never changes. So yeah, artistic inaccuracy. Some artistic accuracy, yeah. What was with the angry elephants? Just don't know. Oh my gosh. I love it. And how many of us go to those and are like, what? I do want a time machine. I want to go. Oh, good heavens. That'd be hilarious. So I'm so glad I decided to sit down and do this podcast. This subject in particular. I love art. It's so much. That's why I went to art school. And I love that people make fun of me for, oh, you went to art school and everything. It's like, yeah, so did Gerard Way. Next time you watch Umbrella Academy, just remember the creator went to art school. Freddie Mercury went to art school, one of the biggest musical geniuses of the time. Yeah, he went to art school. He created the crest for Queen. Yeah, so don't make fun of me. I'm not of their caliber, but I like to have dreams. It's good to have a few. Oh, good heavens. So, in fact, when I was in college, I took a history of photography 1 and 2. And I remember my professor saying that before photography, painting was used for documentation, as I touched on earlier. And of course, my professor did point out that there was quite a bit of artistic license. One thing in particular that he pointed out was that with portraits, there have been oftentimes where what we think someone looks like, that's not what they look like at all. Yeah, it comes out later that we find accounts of people talking, like journals or that sort of thing, and someone talks about another person, and we have a famous portrait of them, and that's not what they look like at all. So we can't always decide that these paintings are legit. Because we also have to remind ourselves that artists are they have clientele. So for instance, if I were a painter and I get hired by someone and that person says, I want blonde hair instead of the dark hair that I have, say they've always wanted blonde hair, they consider themselves cursed to have the dark hair, but they want to be painted with blonde hair. So, and they also want to have a different eye color and all of that. Well, I got to do what my client wants if I want to get paid. So that's the way to look at it. And so, but yeah, we have come across, well, historians and in the world of archaeology, they have found that the paintings are not accurate. So the uh, portraits and everything are not always accurate. So, and also you have to realize that when it comes to what I do, the colorizing of uh, photographs, just remember that people are choosing the colors they want a lot of times. I try to find, I mean, even, like Red Skelton, for instance, one of the famous comedians, he had red hair. And there's often times where I look up eye color, hair color, and make sure that it's correct. And Clara Bow had red hair. And so I always make sure, and there's old footage. There was one color reel that shows her red hair, and it's hand tinted. Yeah, it's like a Technicolor thing that she did. She's like holding up a fish or something and everything. So, and but yeah, so don't let yourself be fooled by by the colorizers, including myself. I try really hard to keep up with, I mean, to research and everything, even the costumes. I have tried researching what the costumes, what their color were and everything. So, and all that. So, artistic license. I have had so many people where they're like, how do you know the color? And it's like, I don't. And now, of course, when it comes to events in history, we were talking about, of course, Lady Jane Grey and the execution, and there's another one that's epically famous, if that's the right wording to use. But yeah, and in recent years, it's people have been reminded that this is not what happened. Napoleon on that white stallion, that's when he was crossing the Alps. The painting, I don't remember what year that he painted it. It was a Jacques Louis David. And of course, he was hired by Napoleon to paint this picture because that's what Napoleon wanted us to believe happened. He crossed the Alps on a donkey. And it seems like he was riddled with gout or something like that. And yeah, it seems like he was suffering from something or other. I don't remember exactly. There's no way that he could have been on that majestic steed and would able, yeah, no, he was on a donkey. And again, Paul Delaroc painted the correct events in 1850. And yep, the same one who painted Lady Jane Grey painted. And so, to the guy that was having a massive meltdown over in that documentary, quite honestly, he can shove it because Delaroc was setting us straight with what actually happened, to be honest. I hate when people do that. And there's another painting where and it might be Delaroc. I will double check on that. But there's another painting where, of course, Caesar was crowned, And I think that was in Notre Dame and everything. But and of course he's got the robes and he's got like the laurel leaf. Yeah, maybe it wasn't in Notre Dame, but anyway. And and there's certain parts of that painting that just aren't correct. Now it seems like uh, Napoleon was trying hard to be like Alexander the Great. Yeah, there were a lot of things that he did that he was trying to be, like when he was crossing the Alps and he did all that kind of stuff. He was trying to be like ancient heroes and failed miserably. But there is that painting where he has the robe. I'll double check on all of that. But yeah, it seems like he was trying to be like Alexander the Great, and it seems also that he was trying to be like Attila the Hun. Not Attila. Who was that? Anyway, he failed so hard. And it's cold, isn't it? Yeah, there was another guy that tried and but because I mean, like, I know that Napoleon was interested in a lot of that and a lot of the historic things, and I think the painter swiped all of that stuff and put it all in the painting. I don't think that was Delarock then, because Delarock was more accurate with a lot of the stuff that he did in his paintings. Yeah, a lot more accurate. Because with the Lady Jane Grey, he was going off of a poem, and with with the Delarock, yeah, he's and when you look at the painting of Napoleon, Napoleon just looks mad. Yeah, a lot better than the other one. A lot more accurate, I should say. Now, one of the things that I did want to touch on is you see a lot of um, paintings, probably not as much as I make it sound like, but there are paintings centered around the death of Caesar. And the thing is that there was, at the turn of the century, what was considered the Romantic period, and there was like this revival looking at the Grecian and the Roman, ancient Rome and ancient Greek. And so like Grecian fashion, Roman fashion, and you see it a lot with the turn of the century as society was shifting into the Edwardian era. And I mean, like, hairstyles were shifting into what this Greek and Roman statues were wearing. And but here's the other thing. I actually learned this in math class, high school math class of all places. When you look at a lot of the paintings, and this was even back in the 1600s, and so it may have started there. This is the problem, is that there are paintings from the turn of the century that have been confused for paintings from the 1600s because of this revival. So and it throws historians off as well, history and archaeologists and like art experts and all that. So it's not just me. It's not just me. Now, the thing is that when you look at these paintings of like architecture, there's this line design, And the thing is that it's like a square kind of, and it takes your eye into the center. So uh, first you see like the lines going up, and then you see the lines going uh, to the side, and then it slowly takes you into the center. And the reason that I brought up the death of Caesar is because several of these they use like the Senate, the interior of of the Senate. Um, if that makes sense, because it was thought that, well, because Caesar was murdered in the Senate. So, but the thing is that a lot of times that moment is like an afterthought. Your eyes go more at the architecture and everything else. This little thing in the corner doesn't mean anything. I hope this is all making sense. I know what I'm trying to say. I'll try to find a video. It seems like there's a few YouTube videos. I'll try and find it and show, because it's actually really neat. I thought it was really interesting when I learned about it in math class and everything. But the fact that a painting can show geometric designs like that is, blew my mind. But yeah, I'll look for a YouTube video that can explain it a hell of a lot better than I can. Oh, good heavens. Oh, goodness me. I try. I really do. The words are there, but it just doesn't want to come out correctly. Oh, goodness me. But yeah, I mean, like, the thing is that when you use ancient anything really, I mean, like, I have pictures of like the death of Cleopatra, and she's like in the center, but I see the pillars, the pillars going up, and then I see, yeah, so maybe that's the whole thing about it. You see these pillars, and then you see other things taking your eye horizontally, and everything connects. Yeah, so bunch of geometrics and mathematics, and I learned that in math class. I hope it makes sense. But the interesting thing about it is that, or more, it's interesting and frustrating at the same time for those that are history experts, and I guess archaeologists at the same time, is trying to figure out which ones were painted when, because of this revival. And it's kind of like now, you have all these people that are obsessed with the Edwardian era or the 1920s, and so they reconstruct, they make the dresses, and then they try to pass them off as originals from back then, and it's like, just stop. Stop with the scamming. Art Deco was not in the 20s, not until like 1929, so don't say that it's from 1922. Stop it. I think you need to do a little more research on what dresses look like back then. Before, that was the thing. Okay, I am going to do a little bit of a rant here, because it is artistic accuracy, even with clothing. See, you watch a movie like The Great Gatsby, and then you decide that that's how it was. That's not how it is. Why don't you in 1922 they because that's set in the early 20s, right? I mean, that's Fitzgerald's relationship with his wife, Zelda. Okay, so that's the early 20s. Look, I don't like the book. I hate the book, but I know what it is. All right. And I'm super pissed off that they didn't use 20s music. They used rap music in the movie. That's a load of shit to me. But the point is that they used all that Art Deco gold thing. That's the 30s, people. And so you have all these people who are making dresses, reconstruct. Well, it's great that you're reconstructing and making your own dresses that look like the pencil dresses from the 20s. The problem is that you're using Art Deco and not what dresses look like in the 20s. You're using the wrong style. Because in 1922, King Tut's tomb was found. So you would be using Egyptian. The Egyptian revival happened. Yeah. Wrong style. You got to do research, kids. You got to do it. What you're doing is Hollywoodisms. Artistic accuracy. It helps. Don't pass it off as vintage. I hate when people, that's a whole other podcast for another time. Anyway, and no, I'm not telling you to hate the book or anything. It's me to hate. No, I don't hate it. He wrote other books, okay? And there were other authors in the 20s. Come on. But again, that's for another podcast. I'll do a podcast about the 20s and I'll just go off. We're talking about art here. Oh man. My brain goes everywhere. Anyway, so now that I've had that, oh, good heavens. So, if we were to look at ancient history, there's even moments in ancient history where the artwork is inaccurate. I mean, I've watched, oh gosh, I've watched so many documentaries, it's ridiculous. This is my life. But Ramses, I believe it's, oh gosh, I think it's the second. I will correct myself in the description box. But Ramses the second, it was early on in his reign. He was a very young man, and he didn't make correct decisions when it came to when he was in battle. Now, he thought he was going to surprise the Hittites. And that's not what happened. The Hittites surprised him. It was a complete surprise attack and everything. And the problem is he went back to Egypt and said, "We won." Because of course, I mean, the last thing you want to do when you're a new pharaoh is go back and say, yeah, guys, I lost. Sorry about that. So as soon as he got back to Egypt, as soon as he returned to Egypt, he made sure that it was written all over that he was victorious and he was the winner of this battle and everything. It's still there. You go to Egypt and it's still there. However, the Hittites said otherwise. And they compromised, of course. Yeah, they came up with a compromise and all that. But it's funny to me that he he did some fibbing. He did. Now, there have been other documentaries that I've seen where there has been bad blood between siblings. And like there have been in ancient Egypt, and there have been others as well, where a brother has been banished and they scratch him out, and they actually um, have the other brother who is he like rises in the ranks or whatever you want to call it. And so you can see that somebody else had been there and they etched in the new brother, be it a brother, family member, what have you. So yeah. And so there's a lot of times where and even I was watching a documentary. I don't know if I talked about this in another, but I was watching one with Joan Fletcher. I love her. Her and Mary Beard, they're my favorites. And she was talking about the throne for King Tut. And now we're all familiar with the throne of King Tut. It has him with that big crown on his head, and his wife is standing in front of him. She's reaching out to him and everything. It's like they're in a field or something, or at the palace, and there's all these plants around him. And she said that this is that they fixed it. Behind them is the Aten, which is King Tut's father's deity. Now, King Tut had tried to get rid of all that. He didn't want to have anything to do with that. He was trying to bring back the old gods and goddesses. So, yeah, why would the Aten be there? She was showing where around King Tut's crown, it had been fixed a little bit, and around his wife's head, Naksunamun, as well. So historians believe that this was actually his father's crown, or crown, throne. So again, fixed. I mean, I've been looking at this thing since I was like 11, 12 years old. And I just figured that it was wrinkled because it was brought out into the open air. And so it was reacting to, after being in the tomb for so long. I just figured that's what happened. But no, as soon as she said stuff about the Aten, it's like, nah, okay. I mean, so, and there's other moments as well. I mean, Mary Beard has brought up so many things. Too many to list. Another, I mean, the biggest thing to bring up is the Victorian era, because the Victorians went through, like Pompeii was discovered during the Victorian era. And the Victorians, if something was immoral, it had to be fixed. They didn't care. Even though this was, this couldn't be, it was priceless. Let's just say that. But the Victorians didn't care. It was like, oh my gosh, this is sexual and it defends me, so we got to fix it. And it's my mom has a book. She has like 3 different books because she's also an artist. She had part of a series of books that were of different artists, and in one of them has the statue of David, and in it it shows David has a leaf. They hadn't fixed him yet. Yeah, when during the Victorian era, because I guess that now David, the statue of David, is now back to normal. And but the Victorians uh, gave him a leaf because, and what blows my mind about the Victorians' whole mindset on this is because, you know, they were destroying things right and left if it was well, that's dirty. Oh my gosh, sex, that's bad. Those ancients were, how do you think you got here? Oh, good heavens. And in fact, there was one with Mary Beard where she was in one of the I think it may have been a brothel, I don't know. Mary Beard made it clear that there aren't as many brothels in Pompeii as people seem to think. Just because there's all those dirty images. Come on, people. No, but there were a series of images on the wall, and one of them had been completely scratched out. And it made her really upset, which it makes me upset as well, because the Victorians just, oh, that's the one thing that I can't stand about them. But in a book, somebody had illustrated it, so we still have it. And it showed people having intercourse. And this is what I have to say. We were to get rid of everything that offended you, if you're offended, if okay, if you sat there and got rid of every little thing that offended you, the world would be so boring. I mean, there are things that offend me and I just ignore it. It's like, or like I scroll past it. It's like, okay, whatever. I'm not going to bother with it because what's the point? Just because it offends me does not mean that I'm going to take it away for everyone else. Does that make sense? Oh my gosh. So, yeah. Oh, good heavens. Yeah, the rampage of art defamation during the Victorian era. Oh, I started to say something with that and I went off track a little bit, but the thing that gets me is they went on this rampage of getting rid of stuff that offended them, like scratching out that mural that somebody had fortunately illustrated. And then of course there's the statue of David and all of that. But then you have all of these paintings of like heroes and mythical uh events or Middle Ages, and they're naked. How many of these paintings show like women just lying back fully in the nude? that's okay. But these priceless, th- that once you scratch it out, it can't be, we can't get it back. Ugh, yeah, there's a lot of those here, like where they do like the gods and goddesses. There's that one of I think it's Hermes, or and he's strutting his stuff and he's full blown naked. And there's so many of like, there's like the Rise of the Valkyries that they did. Yeah, somebody painted a this piece that was inspired by the musical number that Wagner did. And all these women, these plump ladies, are naked. Oh, make it make sense, people. I mean, the Victorians like completely contradicted themselves on that one. I don't understand that. And I love that Isadora Duncan completely blew everyone's mind. Yeah, she would dance naked and everything. I don't know. And then you had all the, you had the women that would dance the Seven Veils and all that. That one was brought back during the Victorian era. Actually, it was the turn of the century, because you had um oh shoot, Ruth St. Denis, who was the founder of modern dance, which, she, I don't care what anyone says, she was a genius at what she did. And but then when she came along, then you had a lot of other people who were performing sensual dances as well. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the Victorians were doing, but oh goodness, this podcast went everywhere. But I hope it made sense. Yeah, I'll look for a video that explains it better when it comes to the lines in paintings, and going in, and because I don't think I explained it well at all. My whole point for this was to talk about artistic accuracy. It started off well and then went completely off the rails. But anyway, I think I'm going to stop it here because I think I'm just rambling at this point.